So here we go. So let's start. Let me just, before we get into the finalists for every award, let us just set the groundwork of how this has changed. So in previous years in the National Football League, they only tabulated one vote per person, the person that they voted for to win said award. So that's why, remember, for years, people were always like, the big thing was like, Russell Wilson has never gotten a single MVP vote. Well, the reason Russell Wilson had never gotten a single MVP vote is because each voter only had one person's name to enter when they finally decided on who to vote for. They changed it this year. Remember in the NBA when they do MVP, they do it on a point system. You give your first 5 that you vote for, and it's 10. The point system is 10 points, 7 points, 5 points, 3 points, 1 point. So the NFL decided after all these years, because Russell Wilson could have been second place on a bajillion ballots, we just never would have known about it. So this is an AP award. The Associated Press, this is not an NFL award, but these are the ones that will decide whether your bets are graded or not. The AP's global sports editor, Ricardo Zuniga, explained why the organization decided to make the change from one vote to multiple votes after more than 50 years of rolling with a one-player per ballot system. Quote, the essence of the AP NFL Awards remains the same, to recognize the top performers of the season. Our goal is to provide the voters with an accurate and voting system to reflect their preferences. These tweaks will help them in their selection process. Now, here's the thing, Kelley. They didn't, as far as I know, they didn't tell us what the point system, like the NBA goes 10-7-5-3-1. I don't think the AP told us what the point system is.
I haven't seen that either.
But here's what I can tell you. For MVP, every voter enters their top 5. For every other award, they enter their top 3. That's how this works. Now, what does that leave this open to? For the first time ever in the NFL, it leaves it open to a person who gets the most first-place votes might not actually win the award.
Right.
Ergo the rub, ladies and gentlemen.
Now,
so that's your backdrop.
You would think that isn't going to happen very often, but it could.
If you go back, they've actually done this with NFL MVP awards in the past, and there are certain people who would not have won the MVP in certain years. Like, for instance, like Brett Favre and Barry Sanders would have, I think, tied back in 1997.
Yeah, they would have tied. I think I'm looking at the same thing you are.
Rich Gannon had the most first-place votes in 2002, but I don't think he won, right? Peyton Manning. Say again? Am I wrong about that?
Well, I think that's just the regular first-place votes.
Those were the first place. Oh, but I'm looking at the season where, because remember, those are people that won MVP despite not getting 20 of the top
right,
first
and then the
place.
next closest finisher.
So you don't know if they got fewer than 20 first place votes.
The second place numbers could come into play.
That's correct. Yeah. So Rich Gannon might not have won. So those two guys who tied in 1997, Favre and Sanders, might not have. Like, we don't know. So here are the finalists. Kelley, I'll let you tee up which you want to go with first.
Yeah, we'll go with, how about Rookie of the Year here? We got
Rookie of the Offensive Rookie of the Year, specifically. Offense and defense. Here are your 3 finalists. On offense, Brock Purdy, baby. Yes, let's go. I have a plus 750 on Brock Purdy. Trust me, it's not as high as others, but I'll love it if he wins. Brock Purdy, who started 5 regular season games and played in 6. Brock Purdy is a quarterback, ladies and gentlemen, and that could be the difference. Kenneth Walker III from the Seahawks, the running back, and Garrett Wilson, the wideout for the Jets, the other 2 finalists. Purdy, Walker, Wilson. Defense, well, this one's probably fait accompli. Sauce Gardner, Aiden Hutchinson, and Tariq Woolen.
I feel like the Tariq Woolen one at this point is just like a sympathy. Like,
it's so bad.
Like, you had a great year, but we're not going to give this.
We're going to give it to the Sauce.
Like,
man.
It doesn't feel like that is automatically everybody's third place. Like, it's like, which
or second.
Yeah, or second, right?
Yeah.
But it's Sauce, and then however you did the next 2. Probably.
Sauce going to roll, I think.
Okay, you want to go next up? We have Coach of the Year.
Okay, this is perhaps the most fascinating. By the way, this is an incorrect list now. So
it's been shaved down.
Shaved down. So it was originally reported that there were 5 finalists. No, there are 3 finalists to this as well, and it's the top 3 names on this board. Brian Daboll, head coach of the Giants, who authored a big Giants turnaround. Doug Peterson, talk about a big turnaround from the Urban Meyer administration for the Jaguars. and Kyle Shanahan, who has coached up Mr. Irrelevant to a division title, and now, by the way, the votes were already in before this happened, but now to a championship game. Sean McDermott and Nick Sirianni, who were originally reported as finalists, did not make the top 3.
Yeah, that was awkward this morning because they did release this first, and then it got cut down.
Couple comments on this. One of which is just Sean McDermott's never going to get this award. He's always going to be a Susan Lucci type. He's got Josh Allen. Nick Sirianni, though. Remember when the Eagles had one loss? Remember when their only loss was to the Commanders? And I used to come on here on a numbers game and I said, look, as long as it's one loss, it's an auto coach of the year, right? Because the record will be so cartoonish, you have to give it to Sirianni, and there's no real question about it. As soon as they lost a second and a third game, and the record became more mortal, then it's a free-for-all. And I just want to get back to my comment. When Dan Campbell was at plus 175 in the market, and Brian Daboll was at 30-1, and Ron Rivera was at 100-1. And what was my comment? There is no world in which these are the correct odds. Now we'll find out if on the bottom side of that, if Rivera even got any of the votes at all. But on the top side of that, you now see what I'm talking about. Dan Campbell didn't even make the top 5. And he was plus 175 in the market. That's why I always say we are often too close to the sun as bettors on these things. We stare at these betting markets so much every day. We're like, well, it has to be true. No, it doesn't. These voters aren't bettors. Defensive Player of the Year.
That is pretty shocking that we did. So Nick Sirianni is not in that final 3. That is wild.
And here's my thing about that Coach of the Year. Can I just say this?
Yeah.
Any one of those 3 guys, Daboll, Shanahan, and Peterson,
yeah.
I think reasonable minds would tell you you shouldn't be too aghast. Like, I know people have tickets, so people have their own, betting interest, like I do with Brock Purdy. But if any one of those 3 guys wins, you should be okay.
Completely agree.
You should be okay with
I think Sirianni should be right up there with that group, but whatever.
He should be. He may be 4th for all we know.
Yeah,
but he didn't make the top 3.
But I'm with you. Even if it was a final 4, I'd be okay with any of those 4 winning.
I think those are the right 3. I really do. With apologies to Nick Sirianni.
But you're right. I mean, that is the perfect example of us being too close to the sun, right? Sirianni is odds-on favorite for most of the season.
3 finalists for the NFL's Defensive Player of the Year. Nick Bosa, Micah Parsons, Chris Jones. I'd love for this to be Parsons. I have a plus 650 from before the season, but I think it's Nick Bosa.
Yeah, I think this one's handing it to Bosa.
Let's go to the next. That from Field Yates. A lot of guys reporting these things this morning.
We got Offensive Player of the Year
Offensive Player of the Year. Oh, so this is not MVP. This is Offensive Player of the Year. It's Mahomes, Hurts, and Jefferson. So I'm going to assume Mahomes gets MVP, which he should. So I think this is either Hurts or Jefferson.
I think, and that we brought that up so many times, right? If MVP goes to Mahomes, do you do the whole 2 quarterback one and give the Offensive Player of the Year to Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, my comment was, can you shut Jalen Hurts out of everything? Right. I don't think you can, but we'll see.
God, Justin Jefferson's year was ridiculous.
It was ridiculous. It's either Hurts or Jefferson. MVP's got to be Mahomes. We'll get to that. But here's a fascinating one. Comeback Player of the Year. Saquon, Christian McCaffrey, Geno Smith. Saquon coming back from injury. Christian McCaffrey coming back from injury. Geno Smith coming back from sucking. Now, here's the thing I love about the Geno Smith haters, right? The very people who are like, it shouldn't be that award are the very people that have slammed him for years. So you are responsible if he wins this because you should have kept your mouths shut all those years. I think it's Geno. I've never wavered from that. I get it. It should probably be most improved, but they don't have that. It's all It's catch-all comeback player of the year. And then there's the MVP. Mahomes, Hurts, Jefferson, Allen, and Burrow. Who could argue with any of those 5? Yeah. But it's going to be Patrick Mahomes, isn't it? That'd be a shock if it wasn't. These are fascinating. By the way, not in comeback player of the year finalists, Nick Gates of the New York Giants. Jason Weingarten on the show later. We could pour out a 40. Pour out a 40 for Nick Gates.
Pour one out for it.
We're going to have a good talk with Jason later. That should be a good 90 seconds.
Tickets that should have been.
90 seconds of him just railing about that. By the way, one clarification, and let's just add this here. The clarification, because I said I don't know if I've seen a point system yet. Rob Mahdi puts this out. Rob Mahdi is an AP lead NFL writer, so he would know. And shout out to Moneyline Marv on Twitter for pointing this out to me. The point system, again, I mentioned that for MVP, it's 5. Your top 5 are put in by each voter, and for every other award, it's your top 3. For MVP, Kelley, it will be a system of 10 points for first, 5 points for second, 3 for third, 2 for fourth, 1 for fifth. And for all other awards where it's your top 3, it'll be 5-3-1 point system.
Okay. What was the MVP again? What were the top?
10, 5, 3, 2, 1.
10. Okay, so 10 for first.
So first is weighted heavily.
Yeah. They want to avoid that
They
situation.
They really want to avoid that
situation.
For MVP specifically, they really want to avoid it. Yeah.
Because imagine if that happened in your first year or two of doing this, people would lose their minds.
What kind of random player would you think would win MVP? Just get a marginal play. Yeah, what do you know? Terry McLaurin is your MVP. How did that happen? He had 1,000 bajillion third place. Ladies and gentlemen, Drew Dinsick joins us at whale_capper. He is the co-host of both the Deep Dive podcast, which he does with his buddy Andy Molitor. By the way, Andy Molitor gets juice on this show every week. I love it. And ladies and gentlemen, of course, NBC Sports Bet the Edge. It's Drew Dinsick, whale_capper. How you doing, Drew?
I'm good. Yeah, no, I like the way that they set up the ranked choice voting scoring. You don't want a situation where you find yourself before Congress answering questions about
you really don't.
Why did Terry McLaurin win the MVP? Like that would be bad.
That would be awkward. Yes.
And I think I think we pretty much know about half of these. I mean, Mahomes MVP is, you can put it in stone. The fact that Justin Jefferson made it to an MVP finalist, means he's, pretty shoo-in my opinion, for Offensive Player of the Year. Defensive Player of the Year looks pretty strongly to be Nick Bosa based on all of the awards that I've seen people write about. The Defensive Rookie of the Year looks pretty solidly Sauce Gardner. And then the other 3.
Those are awesome because you don't know about the other 3, right?
I mean, really and truly, tune in February 9th.
Yeah.
You'll find out then. I mean, the Offensive Rookie of the Year, Coach of the Year, and Comeback Player of the Year really could break anyway, depending on sort of how the ranked choice scoring turns out with some of the down ballot voting. So excited to see where those break. I think I'm going to get second place in almost every category. So I'm excited to tune in February 9th.
Yes, and what Drew said, and thank you for putting a bow on this, February 9th is when all of these award winners get announced. It's not like baseball where you have to wait till Thanksgiving to find out who the MVP is in the National League. And then they, on MLB Network, they dramatically say, and now Gertrude Harper, Bryce's mother, presents the NL MVP award. I don't know if her name is Gertrude, by the way, but you get the idea. It's ridiculous.
Gertrude Harper, yeah.
I wonder who's going to win. Huh? This should be fascinating. They milk 4 hours out of it. So February 9th, we're all which is your biggest ticket, by the way, Drew, before we move on, I should ask.
All my biggest tickets are DOA. I think the only real upside I could have is if somehow Saquon Barkley takes the Comeback Player of the Year away from Geno Smith, but I'm not very hopeful. Like I said, I think I'm going to end up with second place in almost every market. I covered all of my bases on MVP. I mean, there was a window of time where you remember when the Bills Bengals game, there were questions swirling if they were going to replay it, and insiders were basically saying it's unlikely. I got heavy action down on Mahomes at that point because realistically, the only 2 guys I thought could steal it was whoever was going to win that game. So in the absence of a replay, it looked pretty clearly like Mahomes was going to be in the bag there. So the price wasn't great. I think I was laying like minus 500 to minus 800 ish, but that was probably the only way to get anything plus EV in the awards market in the final throws there.
Purdy is my guy. Just add it to my 49ers every which way season. Have them for NFC, for title, for, Super Bowl MVPs with Kittle and McCaffrey. Purdy for Offensive Rookie of the Year is my guy. Kelley, who's your biggest, by the way, on these? Do you have one on any of these markets?
Tickets?
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and look.
Tickets? No.
So most of the time, people don't know that for the past 4 minutes, I've actually been back here doing that producing side of my job.
Oh, sorry.
I caught some Shanahan at 30-1, but that was largely I had heavily staked Sirianni in the 20-1 range before the season started. And we got to like week 13 or so, and I was like, man, the only guy that can really steal this is Shanahan, because you're looking at the Giants with 2 games against the Eagles down the stretch, and you're like, well, they're going to lose both of those, so how in the world could Daboll get it? Yeah, I'm sweating that now because Sirianni is out of the running and Shanahan is in. Amazingly, the third qualifier is Doug Peterson for winning the AFC South. Well, my God, for being gifted the AFC South.
Yeah, but it is the juxtaposition against Urban Meyer, right? Like, that's part of that. It'll be fascinating to find out some of the reasoning on this stuff, right? Because, again, for the Coach of the Year, I get everybody's argument on Daboll and on Peterson and Shanahan. I think Shanahan's alive. I do.
Sure.
Because of, the Brock Purdy part of that. And so it all depends what each voter values. And, again, that's the big thing with the point system. If you get the most first-place votes, it doesn't mean that you're going to win this, so that'll be fascinating.
I'm with Drew on this one. This is the one I've got I think I don't know that I have an issue with really any of the other ones. This one I do have an issue with it. I would absolutely have Sirianni in there over Peterson.
Over Peterson?
Yes.
Yeah.
Peterson did a great job. But I think exactly what Drew just said. It's the AFC South. It was terrible this year, and they barely snuck away with it.
See, Daboll gets it because the Giants of all of these teams had the least expectation, and so I get it on the Daboll.
The Eagles exceeded their win total by more than the Giants.
Well, yeah, but Drew, but the people thought the Eagles would be good. We had a lot of people on this air that thought the Eagles were going to be really good. People thought the Giants would stink.
That's why I bet Sirianni 20-1.
So,
because honestly, I was like, they could be the 1 seed, and they are.
But I want to say this about Daboll, though. That said, again, from an analytics perspective, Daboll shouldn't get this either, right? Like, he got credit for a lot of stuff that happened on the field that, quite frankly, was just good fortune. But they drew the line to Daboll, right? So
there are a bunch of lessons to be learned about if you're betting these markets from this particular award market.
Yes.
And the reality is the Giants were not good down the stretch in terms of win-loss. They were 2-5-1 or something insane, but the important thing was the second to last week of the season, right before everyone really starts thinking hard about who they're going to vote for, they beat the ever-loving bejesus out of the Indianapolis Colts. And it was literally like, wow, man, who could have guessed that the Giants could do that? And it was literally, they're playing an FCS team, and they just bury them, and everybody's like just gushing over Daboll at that point. And it's like, in the same weekend that Sirianni loses with Gardner Minshew against the Saints, and it's like, well, I mean, can't consider Sirianni a realistic candidate. He just lost to the Saints. It's like, all right, this is a stupid award. Like, the Eagles were victims of being too good, too early, right? Like, by the time we got to halfway through the season, people had clearly adjusted their power rankings to where the Eagles were a top 3 team, and so at that point, like the perception of exceeding expectations was completely re-anchored, and just the fact that they ended up as the 1 seed seemed predetermined because everybody had sort of decided, this is the best team in the NFC. So
I love that
Sirianni suffers for that.
I love that Drew said this is a stupid award. Right after they give these out, Drew, the fans should be able to vote on which is the stupidest of these. I'll tell you, AP, this is the stupidest one of these.
Go look at your past winners. This is the kiss of death. You do not last long after winning Coach of the Year.
Again, I'll say this. Campbell was plus 175. Daboll was 30-1. And Rivera's 100-1. There is no world in which any of that is true.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.